Don't be sad. This is just how it works out sometimes.
Almost 4 years ago now, Battlefield 2042 took the series off the rails. But the Battlefield 6 beta has just proved that this franchise can still get it right. Battlefield 2042 was a mess. We all remember the chaos at launch. Empty maps, barely any weapons, specialists instead of our traditional classes, and the gunplay, it just wasn't hitting the same way that the prior Battlefield games did. Fast forward to Battlefield 6, and so far from the beta, it feels like DICE have actually learned from those mistakes. In this video, I want to break down the key reasons why Battlefield 6 already feels like the Battlefield we've been waiting for. From the military, grounded atmosphere to the gunplay, movement, map design, and even the arsenal of weapons we've seen so far. One of the first things that hits you in Battlefield 6 when we were playing the beta was the military atmosphere. It actually feels like a proper war again. In 2042, maps were wide open, lacked any focus, and objectives felt like random spots on a giant arena. Whereas in Battlefield 6, objectives and the general flow of the maps feel so much more cohesive and like they're designed with actual intent behind them. Take Liberation Peak, for example. Every objective feels like it has a purpose. It feels grounded, like it would actually make sense in reality. For example, Objective F, there's this like military base. It's like an FOB kind of thing. It was the last point on Breakthrough, and honestly, just the way that that looked and the way that it played, it gave me Medal of Honor 2010 vibes. Like, it felt like something that had been lifted from like a photo that you'd see in the global war on terror in Afghanistan, for example. Like, it felt like a real base, and like I just don't think I've ever had that experience with any Battlefield 2042 map ever. Even after they were reworked God knows how many times, all of the core maps were seemingly reworked, and even after that point it still didn't feel true to the world that it was trying to portray. Even the overall lore and tone just feels way more believable in Battlefield 6. 2042 felt like it was trying to be a random futuristic hero shooter sandbox, and although Battlefield 6 features the Pax Armata, which are, you know, this made up PMC faction, it still feels like a modern war, and the aesthetic still has that proper military backbone behind it. Now let's talk about the actual gameplay and the shooting, because honestly this might be the biggest difference between the two games. In 2042 the gunplay felt floaty, inconsistent, and weapons didn't feel like they had any weight. Especially at launch, we all remember seeing those clips. I'll put some footage on screen now of where you're just trying to shoot someone and the bullets were going left, right, left, right, left, right all over the target, but not actually hitting anything. Battlefield 6 flips that completely. Like, the guns feel punchy, satisfying, they're really rewarding. Recoil feels nice. Every weapon feels like it has like a pretty distinctive characteristic. Well, from the ones we played in the beta so far. You feel in control of your fights, and it's actually enjoyable to learn a certain weapon and master it, which I feel like that's exactly what Battlefield should be and has been in the past. And maybe this is due in part to Battlefield Labs, you know, the ability for the community to give feedback before the launch, before the game was even announced. That's completely new for the franchise, and I feel like that's new for quite a lot of AAA games. You don't really see that, and although it's given us an abundance of leaks, and some of the more recent ones with the Battle Royale and other launch maps that are coming, or post-launch maps, you know, even despite that, I feel like it's helped actually shape Battlefield 6 in a really good way. I mean, we'll see on launch, but so far it's looking really promising. It's like they actually took the time to refine the gunplay instead of just shipping it out and hoping patches later would fix things. Battlefield 2042. Movement is another area that's massively improved. 2042 movement was super weird. Sure, you could slide, but it all felt clunky and limited, and there wasn't much depth to how you could position yourself. In Battlefield 6, they've clearly taken notes from Battlefield 5. Once again, you can lie on your back, roll after a jump, and it all feels more fluid together. I don't know why that was absent from 2042, but it massively helps. These changes sound small, but in the middle of a firefight, they make a big difference and they add to that grounded feel, and they just give you options that 2042 simply lacked. Now, on to one of my favourite talking points, map design and the atmosphere. In 2042, this was probably one of the single biggest failures, aside from the removal of classes, but the maps were probably one of the biggest failures at launch. I mean, they were just massive, empty, completely directionless. As I said earlier, DICE eventually had to rework almost all of them just to make them somewhat playable. In the beta for Battlefield 6, the difference is night and day. The maps feel believable, with layered combat, logical objectives and natural choke points. They're built for actual firefights, not just running across open, empty fields with no cover, hoping to find anyone. Now, to be fair, not everything's perfect with Battlefield 6. Some of the beta maps were very close quarters, which has already been raised as concerns in the community. I'll admit Empire State was probably one of the weakest maps for me personally. It just felt like there was so much clutter and cover objects everywhere. You'd be shooting at a guy one way and you'd dive to the left or the right almost all of the time. But even then, the direction and tone still felt way more cohesive than anything 2042 ever produced, pretty much. And looking at the leaks and the PC trailer that recently dropped, the launch map pool seems promising. They might not be the biggest maps we've ever seen, even looking at things like Mirak Valley, but they already look way more interesting than anything 2042 shipped with, and they look like the classic Battlefield maps that we know and love, which the beta was kind of missing, and that's exactly what Battlefield needs. Now let's talk guns, because this was another big pain point in 2042. At launch there was just 22 weapons across all classes. 22. That's shocking for a Battlefield game. There was no variety, no experimentation, and it just killed the replayability. I mean, they eventually had to bring portal weapons into the main game just to make the arsenal feel somewhat fleshed out. Battlefield 6 already looks like it's doing way better. The arsenal we've seen so far, between playing the beta and then the leaks and trailers, etc. following that, suggests a much bigger pool of weapons. And more importantly, they feel grounded. The designs are obviously a lot more believable, modern, etc. And they slot perfectly into the tone of the game. Nothing looks out of place like it does in 2042. I'm very excited to try some of the new weapons that weren't in the beta, like the MP5, the SCAR. Yeah, just because of how nice the shooting feels, and all in all, the weapons just look like a massive win compared to 2042. So yeah, so far Battlefield 6 looks like it's fixed almost everything that 2042 broke or introduced, from the atmosphere, the shooting, the movement and the player controller, the maps, and even the weapon arsenal. It's a huge step forward for this series. It's not perfect. We'll have to see how the launch maps out and any future updates play out, but right now it actually feels like Battlefield is back. If you played the beta, feel free to let me know what you thought in the comments. Did it feel like a return to form for you, or are you still a bit skeptical? Either way, I'll be covering Battlefield 6 all the way to launch and beyond, so if you want to see more, make sure to leave me a like and consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one.